I would like to introduce you to Ken Wall, a very godly man and my dad.
It is Sunday, June 7th, 2026. Today I want to look at Ruth 1, verses 16 to 17. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. The book of Ruth begins in a season of loss. A famine drives a family from Bethlehem to Moab. Naomi loses her husband and later both of her sons. What remains is a grieving widow and her 2 daughters-in-law. Naomi decides to return home, believing that she has nothing left to offer. She encourages her daughter-in-law to stay in Moab and begin new lives. Orpah leaves, but Ruth makes one of the most remarkable declarations of loyalty and faith found anywhere in the Bible, and I like to say, anywhere in literature. Her words are not merely a promise to Naomi. They are a testimony of commitment, sacrifice, and trust in God. I want to share with you 5 things that I find amazing about these 2 verses. First, true commitment stays when leaving would be easier. Ruth begins, "Do not urge me to leave you." From a human perspective, Ruth had every reason to stay behind. She was a Moabite. Her husband had died. Returning to Judah meant entering a foreign land with no guarantee of acceptance, provision, or security. Yet, Ruth chose the difficult path because genuine commitment is revealed not when things are easy, but when they are costly. Many relationships are tested by hardship. Loyalty is proven when circumstances give us an opportunity to walk away, yet we remain faithful. Godly commitment says, I am not here merely for the benefits. I am here because love remains faithful. Number 2, faith requires leaving the familiar. Ruth continues, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay." Ruth was leaving everything she had known. Her homeland, culture, language, and familiar surroundings would all be left behind her. Faith often requires stepping away from what is comfortable and moving toward what God is calling us to become. When Abraham obeyed God, he left his homeland without knowing exactly where he was going. Ruth demonstrates that same spirit of faith. The Christian life is often a journey into unknown territory. God does not always reveal every detail of the road ahead, but he calls us to trust him enough to take the next step. Number 3, salvation involves a change of alliance. Ruth declares, "Your people will be my people and your God, my God." This is the heart of the passage. Ruth is not merely changing her address, she is changing her identity. She is turning from worshiping the god Shemoth and embracing the only true God. Her confession points behind loyalty to Naomi. It is a confession of faith in the Lord. Every believer must come to a similar place. Christianity is not simply adding God to our lives. It is surrendering ourselves to him. God calls people to the same commitment today. Number 4, God honors faithful devotion. Ruth promises, "Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." Her commitment was lifelong. Ruth was not looking for a temporary arrangement. She was making a covenant of loyalty. What Ruth could not see was that God was already writing a greater story. In time, she would marry Boaz. She would become the great-grandmother of King David. Most remarkably, she would become part of the family line of Jesus Christ. God took the faithfulness of an obscure widow and wove it into his plan of redemption. Often We cannot see what God is doing through our obedience. We may think our faithfulness is small or unnoticed, yet God specializes in taking ordinary acts of faith and using them for extraordinary purposes. And number 5, Ruth points us to Christ. Ruth's story ultimately points beyond herself. She left everything behind to identify with God's people. Jesus left the glory of heaven to identify with humanity. Ruth demonstrated covenant love toward Naomi. Jesus demonstrated perfect covenant love toward us. Ruth committed herself completely. Jesus Christ gave himself completely, even to death on a cross. The book of Ruth reminds us that God's redemption reaches outsiders, foreigners, the broken, and the hopeless. Ruth, she was welcomed by grace, and through Jesus, that same grace is extended to all who believe. It is no wonder that Ruth 1:16-17 is said at so many weddings, as these verses are 2 of the most powerful biblical expressions of unwavering commitment, selflessness, and loyalty. These verses provide a wonderful blueprint for a lifelong marriage, and I hope you take them to heart. May the good Lord be with you until we meet again next week.